name is Jessica Alfaro, and I'm the manager of peer exchange and partnerships at CapPlus Exchange. So I'd like to welcome everyone for joining us today. I know I've met several of you at our different events, and I'm pleased to meet the rest of you today as well. So this is our second part of a series on sales, sales practices and techniques from around the globe, and this is hosted by the SME Finance Forum in partnership with CapPlus Exchange, presented by Sandy Vaci. We'd like to just thank you again for joining us today. If you do have any technical problems during the webinar, please feel free to contact my colleague David Sheffick at the website address, at the email address or via Skype. And we do encourage you to participate fully throughout the webinar. So if you have any questions, if you have any comments, please go ahead and post those in the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen or through the questions box. At the end of the session, we'll have a discussion period, and you can either ask your question directly to Sandy, or I'll read them aloud to the facilitator to respond to as well. And if you happen to miss the last webinar on sales, this webinar and all of our previous webinars are available as a video for our web community online, and so you can access those on the website listed here. So we do have another upcoming webinar scheduled in August, and this is specifically going to be looking at financial and non-financial services for SMEs and women entrepreneurs. And so we do encourage you to register for that session. These are free for all of the SME Finance Forum members, and we do ask, if you know someone at your institution who's interested in viewing this, please send out this webinar calendar to anyone who would benefit at this institution, at your institution. And one other thing that we're doing today, we understand that sales is a very, very big topic to cover, not something that we're going to be able to cover in the 2 hours of the webinars that we're doing here. So we're going to do a little bit of an extra poll through this, and there is a prize at the end. So if you have an idea of a way to extend the conversation on sales, so whether or not that's doing a training, sharing some resources, starting a conversation on LinkedIn, whatever you think that should be, feel free to post that in the chat box as well, and we'll collect those responses, and the winner of that will get a signed copy of Sandy's book that he can tell you more about as well. And so we will ship that anywhere in the world, or you can get the PDF version if that's easier as well, for the best response in terms of how to continue this conversation beyond these 2 webinars that we're doing. So at this point in time, I will turn it over to Sandy.
Great, Jessica. Thank you very much for the introduction, and a warm welcome to everybody. From me personally, I guess I should say good morning, good day, and good afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you happen to be in the world. And welcome to this very difficult webinar. Hopefully not very difficult for you. It was difficult for me to put together because, as Jessica mentioned, sales is a huge big topic, and what we need to cover today is a whole lot. So I possibly could not cover everything that I wanted to. If we just look at the basic practices, techniques, there are a good dozen of basic practices, and I just listed them up on the first slide. You will see that some of them are in blue. Those are the ones that we'll touch upon. I had to pick and select a few that I thought would be the most important and the most interesting. There are intermediary skills, and again, we cannot cover 12, obviously. There are advanced techniques, and once again, we had to pick and choose. And then, very importantly, there are closing techniques. Okay, so how do we actually get that business? Normally, there would be, people would talk about 75 basic closing techniques. I picked 25, and from the 25, hopefully we can touch upon 5 to 10. Okay, so these are all the things that we could cover today, and as I said, we possibly cannot, hence the challenge at the end, but let me tell you what we will cover. So first of all, we'll put today's session into the context of where we started the last time, and those of you who joined us last time will then recognize it, and those of you who haven't will get a better idea of where we are trying to go with this. Then we'll talk about the needs exploration process. It's very important. And then get into techniques using paradoxes, seeming contradictions, handling negative feedback. This was a topic last time. And some more best practice examples, the power of numbers, positioning the numbers, elevator speech, killer silence, and so on, and then the closing techniques. So let's hit the start button. And I start with a quick self-introduction. My name is Vaci, as I said. I spent about 35 years in a professional capacity building and managing businesses for different companies around the world, worked in just over 50 different countries on 4 continents. I'm showing some of the companies that I helped in the past. I want to keep this very, very short because you're not really interested in my background. You're interested in sales techniques and how to practice them. And this is me on the left-hand side, smiling at you as I'm sitting here in front of the computer. So let's start. Last time we talked about components of sales. When can we say that we actually have sales in our organization? Well, we said, if you remember, those of you who joined us, that we can say that our organization has sales capabilities if we have actually a sales organization, a sales department, and so on, sales management practices, sales processes in place, skills among the salespeople, we have channels and sales support. Channels and support we talked about last year, and a few weeks ago we talked about sales management. Today we are going to talk about sales skills, which is engaging people, closing the sales, and any special issues that we need to talk about to get to this thing called sale at the very end. All right. You may say, okay, so why is all of this? There's a bit of a feeling out there that when we talk about sales practices, it's really learning the tricks of selling something to somebody, and we practice it, we are so good we can sell anything to anybody. Well, actually there's a very good reason why we need to know these techniques and we need to practice them. When you're talking to somebody and you're trying to help somebody, the person will only listen when his mind is open, right? Right. Now the problem with this one is that our mind is open and we listen when our mind is in the positive territory. However, we are negatively coded. So if your boss comes to you and says, don't be so negative, you can say, sorry boss, I am negative, because everybody is negative. And there is a reason for that, and it's called evolution. Way back thousands of years ago, our ancestors went out hunting for their family. Now, the positive outcome of this hunting was that they could actually get that wild rabbit. So that was the positive thinking. I want to get that wild rabbit and I want to give my family dinner. If at that time we forgot about the negative thing, which is called maybe a saber-toothed tiger that is lurking behind and also wants to have dinner, and he wants us for dinner. If we don't pay attention, we become dinner. So there is no dinner tonight for our family, and there is no dinner for our family for years and years to come, because we became dinner for the saber-toothed tiger. So only those people who were actually worrying about the dangers survived. And we evolved worrying about dangers much more than worrying about the upside. That's normal human thing. But the problem is, as long as we do that, our mind is in negative territory and we are not really open and we don't take messages in. The best way to get somebody relaxed is for you to be relaxed. So remember this. This is how you open up the mind of the person sitting down with you. You have to feel relaxed. The only way to feel relaxed is you know what you're going to do and you know how you're going to do it. That is the reason why we talk about sales practices and why we need to practice those techniques, okay? So that you can feel relaxed. That will make the other person sitting down with you feel relaxed. That means that their mind opens up. That means that you can actually engage in a conversation. And that is why we need to talk about these techniques. And that is why you need to practice the techniques. And that's why it's normally a very interactive thing. I call this the Muhammad Ali principle. Many of you may have heard about Muhammad Ali, one of the biggest fighters of all time. Somebody at one point asked Muhammad Ali, Ali, you know, at every fight, there must be a point in the ring when you know if you have got that fight or if you have lost it. Tell me, when does that point come? And Ali responded, it doesn't come in the ring. So the interviewer said, what do you mean? Ali said, you know, whether or not I win is not decided in the ring. It's decided during the 6 months of preparation I go through before I step in the ring. So this is the Muhammad Ali principle. Practice, practice, practice until all the techniques come naturally. Then you feel relaxed, then the other person feels relaxed, then his mind opens up, he's in positive territory, so you can actually engage. Now, how do we do that engagement? Let's start with a little challenge. And here's my challenge to you. Let's imagine that you put together a special workshop to prevent burnout. The last time when we talked, a few of you mentioned that, you know, salespeople are overstretched, people are burning out. How can we avoid that? Well, you have put together a seminar, a workshop, and for the first time, you are covering both the medical part, the mental health part of burnout, and the business part of the burnout. And you have done it very professionally, so you have some medical doctors who helped you with the medical part, and you applied your 35 years business experience to handle the business part. Nobody has ever done this before. This is the first in the world, the only one, the best one. And now you are going to meet a CEO of a company and the head of human resources. This is a company that you worked with before, and the CEO says, listen, you have done sales training for us, so you are the sales guru, you know how to sell this burnout prevention seminar, so sell it to me. And here's my challenge to you. You're in this situation, you got this great burnout prevention seminar, and you have to sell it. You have to start your selling process. How do you start? Well, you can give an upfront summary of the offer so that the boss of the company will understand what you're really talking about. So it's an upfront summary. Or you can highlight the key benefits so that he will see what's in it for him. Or instead of talking about the offer, you can start asking some questions to engage the CEO and to get some more background on the company. Or, because your offer is the best in the world and the only one, you can focus on the unique selling proposition of your key differentiators. You have to choose one. You're the sales pro. So again, and this is going to be, this is now a survey. So once again, you got a burnout prevention workshop, the best in the world, the first one, and you're starting the selling process. How do you start? A, upfront summary of the offer. B, highlight of the key benefits. C, questions about the company that you're trying to sell to. D, focusing on the unique competitive advantages. Pick one.
Great. So this is now your time to answer the poll question. So choose one of the 4 answers here, and we'll keep this open for about 30 more seconds. And we're getting some good responses in, but we'd like to get in a few more before we close the poll. So again, do you do an upfront summary of the offer? Do you highlight the key benefits? Do you ask questions about the company or provide information on the unique competitive advantages? So we'll keep it open for about 10 more seconds. So this is the last opportunity to vote here, and I think we can go ahead and close it. Great. So Sandy, about 50% of the attendees said that they would ask questions about the company. Mm-hmm. So C, 32% chose B, highlights of key benefits, 14% chose upfront summary of offer, and 5% chose D, unique competitive advantages.
Great, thank you very much. So congratulations to the 50%, and a good encouragement to everybody else. Here is the thing. When we start a selling process, the most important thing to remember is that we don't start by selling, we start by asking questions, okay? Always start with the questions. If somebody says to you, sell this to me, no, I refuse, I'm not gonna sell it, because you may not need it. Let me understand your situation. Let me understand what you really need, and then I can help you with those needs. And for me to understand that, I need to ask some questions. So the first important thing in the sales techniques and selling engagement is that I need to start with the questions, and that's what I was trying to test for here. So we start with the questions. One reason is a lot of people don't know what they actually need. They know what they want. But we need to design something for their needs. They will like that more, and that gives us more opportunities. So both short-term and long-term, that's a better way. It allows us to really target our offer well. There was a survey done in the US, in America, and it said that the best salespeople actually generate 10 times the results, and the differentiating factor between them and those who are not generating these 10 times results, the worst salespeople, is that the best salespeople ask 5 times the questions. So questions will lead to results. If we ask questions and we understand the needs, we can prepare ourselves to handle objections much better, and I'll talk about that, how to do a reverse needs analysis. And then it allows us to use a few techniques, like using paradoxes and getting into the habit of acting like a financial physician. Physician in English is simply a doctor. It's a medical doctor. So let's talk about financial physician and paradoxes, why it's important to ask these questions so we can use these techniques. Imagine you're going to a doctor and you have an upset stomach. You go to the doctor and you say, please doctor, help me because, and the doctor says, okay, take 2 aspirins a day. And you say, no doctor, but please, I have a problem. And the doctor says, okay, so take 4 aspirins a day. And you say, but please understand. And the doctor says, okay, I'm going to give you a prescription painkiller. Now, thank you very much. Go away, send in the next patient. Sounds really funny, doesn't it? But imagine if a company says, our objective is to cross-sell deposit products to all our SME clients. And you go out there and you have to push deposits. And whoever you meet, you start selling deposits. That is exactly what you are doing. Instead of understanding what their needs are, you are trying to push instead of generating the pull. What a good doctor does is this. First, the good doctor asks you what the symptoms are. That is basically what the client tells you what he or she wants. Good doctor then goes further, starts asking questions to understand what causes the symptoms. So when you're questioning, you are understanding what the client needs are. Not just the wants on the surface, but the needs. And then the good doctor uses his or her own knowledge and based on the understanding of the needs, designs the solution. The doctor prescribes medication for the underlying cause, not for the superficial symptoms. So you build an offer for the needs and not for the wants, because you have asked questions and you understood. And there's another thing that the good doctor then does. The good doctor then says, okay, come back 2 weeks later for a checkup. So you as a good salesperson would then do follow-up and start building that relationship further on and mind that relationship, help the client more, and get more business for the company. So this is the first thing, this is the first technique. Think of yourself as being a financial physician. But the next one is using paradoxes. I wanted to show you 2 paradoxes. A paradox is a seeming contradiction. It is a contradiction because we do not understand the underlying cause. And here's the first one. Young people have a very short-term time horizon. Old people have a very long-term time horizon. The problem, the contradiction here is that it is young people who should actually plan for the long-term future. Because old people, however long their time horizon is, they think back and they know all the things that they should be doing differently. Well, they don't have time to use all that knowledge. Now, we can use this to our advantage because we can see the future for the client. We know what he or she may need in the future. We are dealing with a lot of SME customers. We know what the business cycle of a startup is. We know what they need up front. We know what they will need 2-3 years from now, what they will need 5 to 10 years from now. And we can start talking to them about their future needs and make sure that they understand that and start designing offers for them that will satisfy not only today, but the future as well. So we are taking advantage of this paradox that they are thinking short term. We will think long term for them. So that's the first thing. This is the prospect or consumer paradox. Now there is another thing here, a learning for us. Let us not get into the trap of being short-term thinkers ourselves. Because many times what happens is, I want to sell something, so I'm putting a lot of effort into convincing that prospect, take my offer. And the prospect is thinking maybe, maybe not. And then the prospect makes a commitment and says, yes, I will become a customer of your bank. And at that point, what many of us do, we say, okay, great, we have done the job. Okay, let's get on to the next one and try to convince the next customer. So our commitment level drops down. Well, interestingly, the prospect at that point is becoming a customer, and he just made a commitment, so his commitment level goes up. And then he goes, hey, listen, why are you not paying attention to me anymore? It is like courting a lady, and as soon as she agrees to marry you, you say, okay, now your place is in the kitchen, go away, I don't want to talk to you anymore. Well, sorry guys, keep courting, and sorry ladies, you have to keep on going. So let us not drop the customer just because he's a customer now and not a prospect. Let's keep up the commitment level because he just made that commitment, so we need to match that. That's another paradox, okay? So we need to be very mindful of that. Okay, now if you remember, I said that being a financial physician, using paradoxes are two things why we need to ask questions up front. There is another thing. I said, okay, handling negative responses. Rejection, it starts early. Get used to it. It happens to everybody. How can we handle it? Okay, how do we handle negative responses? How do we do that? Well, there are a few tricks here. The first one is we need to understand the competition. We need to understand it as well as we can. Because you know what, most of the time the negative feedback will come back saying that, well, the competition is cheaper, the competition is better. If we don't understand the competitive offer, we cannot compare apples to apples. We compare apples to oranges, and we are navigating blind. So to be prepared for handling negative feedback, first, let's make sure that we understand the competition so that when we hear something about the competition, we can respond. Then we also need to make sure that we actually understand not just the competition, but we understand the customer real well. So we ask, we listen, we explore, we clarify, confirm, and we understand what the real problem is. The customer may say that, you know, my problem is that, you know, your rate is too high. Well, maybe it's not that the rate is too high, but it's the amount of payment that the customer has to make because he doesn't feel that he feels comfortable about the cash flow. So what do we do then? Can we extend the term? Can we offer a payment protection insurance? What can we offer? Let's understand what the problem is before we address it. And very important, let's understand, is it a problem that we need to address? Or is it a predicament that we need to handle? Predicament is a funny English word. It really stands for a situation. A predicament is something that we cannot solve, but we need to manage. We have to live with it. So let's see what is the difference between a problem and the predicament. And again, let me ask you the question. Okay, the client says the rate is better at the competition, and you actually know that this is not true. Is this a problem that you can solve, or is this a predicament, a situation that you need to live with? Choose A or B. Please open up the survey.
Great. So this will be a very quick poll. So client says competition is better. Is this a problem or a predicament? So we'll keep this open for about 20 more seconds. Responses are coming in fast, which I like. So just choose one. Okay, we'll keep it open for about 5 more seconds. Great, so we can go ahead and close the poll. And 81% say that it is a predicament, and 19% say that it is a problem.
Aha. Okay, well, that is why it's so important to really dig into it. The rate is better at the competition, but it is not true. This is something that we can solve. Because we know it is not true, we can prove it, we can show it, we can fix it. Therefore, it is a problem. It's something that we can address. We don't have to live with it. We have the information to deal with it, to solve this issue. Now, here is another one. A client never makes a decision during the first sales session. Is this a problem that we can solve, or is this a predicament, a situation that we need to live with? I ask you again. Choose A or B. Very quick survey.
Great. So we'll keep this open for about 20 more seconds. So the client never decides at the first meeting, is this a problem or is this a predicament? So choose one, and we can go ahead and close the poll. And 81% say that it's a predicament, 19% say that it's a problem.
Great stuff. You guys are learning real fast. Thank you very much. I'm really, really happy. Indeed, it is a predicament. You see, that is the nature of the client. You cannot change people, okay? This is a situation that you have to live with, that you have to handle. So if the client never makes a decision during the first meeting, you should know this, and you should plan your time and your next steps, taking this into account. So you see, this is the difference, and I hope I have highlighted the importance of making the distinction, the difference between a problem and a predicament. So when we have a negative feedback, we need to understand, is this a problem? Is there a problem that we can solve? Or is this just a situation, a predicament that we have to handle, we have to live with it, and we have to plan for it? So that is really important. That is really the first one. And then, okay, when the different problem feedbacks come in, then there are different ways of handling it. For example, if somebody says, well, you're just trying to sell me something, well, this is all you're trying to do. This is where reverse needs analysis comes in. So let me say a few words about reverse needs analysis. If I have asked questions from my prospect or from my client and built my offer based on those questions, then at the end, if the client says, well, no, you're just trying to sell this to me, I'm not really interested, then I have something to go back to. I can say, well, look, I have proposed this because, if you remember, you said this. Yes. And you said this because when we looked at these different things, from these were the best options, right? Right. Okay, and we had this list of different options because you said that you needed this and that, and the other thing, this was your situation, right? Right. And based on that, we designed this. Oh, no, not really. So I go back until I get to this, no, not really, I didn't mean that. And then I say, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't get it right. So can you then explain to me? So the client explains. And then I say, okay, well, then if it's like this, then it would be these options. And based on that, what would be the next thing? Oh, it would be this. It would be this. So I rebuild the offer. I get a pushback. This is not what I need. If I have done the needs analysis up front, asking questions, I can follow it back in reverse until I get to the point of disagreement, and then from that point I clarify, confirm, and rebuild my sales pitch. That is another reason why it's very important to do the needs analysis and asking questions up front. So then there are things when, and I hope I was clear on that. Sorry, I have to carry on going real fast, I understand. The next one is, for example, somebody says, well, why don't you give me a bigger loan? Well, I didn't want to turn this into a challenge, but I often do. I say, okay, somebody says I need a bigger loan, and I cannot give it to him. And many times we say, sorry, this is all I can do. Sorry, our credit department would not approve it. Sorry. Hey, I'm not sorry. I will explain why I'm doing that, why I, as the bank, or we as the bank, are doing that. And I would say, look, we are dealing with many clients like you. And we know the kind of things that you can and cannot afford. We are only giving you a loan that we believe you can afford because it's in our best interest. It's in your best interest, and it's in the bank's best interest. But you're the more important one. If we give you a loan that you cannot afford on a going basis, then you won't be able to pay it. We have to call the loan. You go bankrupt. Your business goes away, and you cannot support your family. We are saving you. We are saving your business. We are trying to help you because we have experience with hundreds and thousands of clients. That is why you're getting this amount of loan. So I'm not apologizing for the fact. I'm explaining why we are doing it in his best interest. Okay? Somebody says, oh, why are you trying to do all this cross-selling? Well, I'm doing it because I think it represents value. It will help you. And if not, guys, remember, please don't push. It's not worth burning bridges, okay? We can always go back and try again later as long as we kept the relationship intact. The competition is cheaper. You remember what I said? You need to know what the competition is like, okay? So if we know it's not true, we state it. If it is true, then we look at the value. Can we justify the value we are providing? Okay? So these are some of the specifics that we can do. And here is a final point. There is no wasted sales session as long as we learn from it. So if we learn from it, if we take something away, we know next time we can do something better, it is not wasted. Keep that in mind. You will never waste a sales session. Now, let's talk about what happens when something comes back and it's a real strong rejection. Well, most of the time, please keep in mind, They can be informed or uninformed, personal or not personal. Most of the time, they are not personal. If they are uninformed, then all we need to do is provide the information. If they are informed, then we need to prepare for it, use some of the techniques we talked about on the previous slide. Most of the time, it's not personal. We just take it personally. So we need to keep that in mind. But if it's personal, that's when mental Tai Chi comes in. And this is the person practicing Tai Chi. In Tai Chi, we are not pushing back strong. In Tai Chi, it's a martial art. We are using the opponent's energy to achieve our goals. The guy runs at us, we step aside and we say, please go ahead. Run into the wall if you wish to. So if somebody is attacking us personally, don't pick it up, don't push back, let him run ahead, run out of steam, and then come back and then start talking. Okay? And you may even, yeah, I see the point, and take note of all the points you're going to make at the end. But don't push back, don't fight back, let the guy run, practice mental Tai Chi. Okay? That is how you will actually achieve your goals. And the reverse needs analysis we talked about. Think about the total needs picture, and we'll get into how we can use that with some other techniques that are coming up. Because, you know, people always talk about rates and fees and so on, but there is a whole lot more than that, and we tend to forget that. Let's not forget, the fact that I'm your sales contact actually represents a value. The fact that I'm there, that I understand your situation, that I built a relationship with you represents a value. You know that I'm always there for you. That is a value. These are intangibles, but they are very, very important. So when we get the pushback, let's make sure that we think about the total needs perspective and all the things that we are providing, not just that rate or that fee. All right, so now let's talk about a couple of interesting techniques that we can use. Here is the power of numbers. That's one technique that a lot of people use. And I wanted to, again, illustrate the point with a little quiz to you. So imagine somebody comes to you and says, please give me $1,000 so I can drill water wells in Burkina Faso. That's the first option. Or somebody else comes to you and says, you know, you can help us save 10,000 lives for the cost of a daily cup of coffee for a year. My question to you is, which one do you think is a more powerful request? Which one would make people listen, would make people consider donating some money? Is it A or is it B?
Great. So again, a very quick poll, and we're already having some quick responses. So which statement is more powerful from a sales perspective? So give $1,000 to drill water wells in Burkina Faso, or give your money for 1 cup of coffee a day to save 10,000 lives. So I think we can go ahead and close the poll, David. I think everyone has voted, and 96% have answered B, give your money for 1 cup of coffee a day to save 10,000 lives.
Thank you. Exactly. Because what happened is, in B, we have used the power of numbers. We have positioned the numbers. Okay? A lot of people say a number is a number. Well, you actually have to position the numbers. We have to quantify the benefits. Then we can add them up, the small benefits, or we can break them down. We can convert the numbers to benefits, but into such benefits that are relevant to the customer. Well, you know, A and B are actually saying the same thing. 365 days in a year for $2.75 average cost of a cup of coffee comes to $1,000. But when I tell somebody, give me $1,000 to drill water holes, they just look at the $1,000 and it's too much. And who knows where Burkina Faso is? I don't care. If I tell them that it's only the cost of a cup of coffee, then I'm putting it into perspective, and then I offset that with 10,000 lives, because by providing drinking water for people, that is why I'm drilling that water well. That will save 10,000 lives. Okay, so then all of a sudden people start relating to the numbers. So every day, please, when you have sales conversations and you prepare for that, think about the power of numbers. Think about how you can position different things and how you can address objections, rejections, and negative feedback by positioning the numbers in the appropriate way. rolling it up, breaking it down, converting it back to benefits, making the benefits very relevant to people. Now, if you do that, then you take the next step, and then you prepare an elevator speech using the power of numbers. Elevator speech gets its name from a little story. You get into an elevator, somebody steps into the elevator, the person goes with you for 3 or 4 floors and then gets out of the elevator. And during the time that you spend together, which is say about 20 seconds, you have to tell this person something. For example, the CEO or managing director of your company steps in the elevator with you and says, hello, my name is such and such, I'm the director or managing director of this company, and you are, and then you have to introduce yourself and tell the big boss why he or she should be very, very happy that you work for the organization. So you think about, you know, the power of numbers, the kind of things that you do, what they achieve for the company, and make it very relevant to the CEO, that he or she will remember you. That is the elevator speech. But we don't only do it for the CEO. We need to prepare this in advance to meet prospects or talk with clients. Because I need to be able to tell in 20 seconds or less why my bank is the best. I need to do the same for myself. If I'm talking to somebody, you know, and the guy says, why should I deal with you? Well, you know, because my bank is the best for you, and I am also the best for you. I can help you the most. Why? 20 seconds to explain. Why you should listen to me? 20 seconds to convince you. Why this is the best offer for you? 20 seconds to convince you. Everybody will listen for 20 seconds, but we have to buy their commitment to listen more. And I got 20 seconds for that. And also, why I'm the best, that's where we started, why my bank is the best if I'm talking to somebody outside. I'm at a conference and somebody says, what is your bank? Where are you coming from? I need to be able to say why is the best bank in the world and why I'm the best to somebody else. To practice this takes a long time, so we are going to skip the practicing of this, but I would encourage all of you to think of these different scenarios that I listed up here. And when you go back, start writing 3-4 sentence sales pitches so that you are prepared. Remember Muhammad Ali, you walk into the conversation fully prepared. If you only have 20 seconds, you know what you should be saying during those 20 seconds. That is called the elevator speech. And you need to use the power of numbers so that whatever you propose, you make very relevant, very quantifiable, and something that's a readily understandable benefit to the person you're talking to. Okay, that's how you do an elevator speech. Now, let's finish up these techniques with the killer silence. And the killer silence is when all of a sudden in the conversation, that silence develops. And it makes people feel pretty uncomfortable and they want to jump in and they want to say something. Now, this is an interesting technique, and we can use that. There are ways and ways of creating killer silence, and sometimes people create a killer silence to put pressure on you. But we can use it. We can use it in a sales conversation. As long as we wish to keep the conversation going and we are doing needs analysis, we don't want a killer silence. A killer silence kills the discussion, okay? We use a killer silence when we wish to close the discussion, when we are ready to close. And what we need to know is that there are certain questions that we can ask that will create the killer silence and certain questions that will not. So I put up 2 questions here. 1, so what is the next thing I can help you with? 2, is there anything else I can do for you? Seemingly, they are the same, but they are not. So my question to you is, what will these questions achieve? Which is more likely to close the discussion and which will keep it going? And I'm giving you 4 options again, so this will be a survey. So, okay, 2 questions, can I help you anymore, or what is the next thing I can do for you? And the other one is, the first one is, what is the next thing I can help you with, and is there anything else I can do for you? And option A, the second one will close it. Option B, the first one will close it. I'm talking about the conversation. Option C, they will both keep it going. Option D, they are both likely to end the conversation. So again, which one does what? Okay, which one will close the conversation and which one will keep it going? So take a pick, A, B, C, or D.
Great. So people are already starting to vote, and so again, thanks for your participation. I'd like to encourage you to choose one of these, and we'll keep the poll open for about 5 more seconds. And I think we can go ahead and close the poll.
And
okay, so overwhelmingly people chose B, that only number 1 stops it. So 52% said that. 24% chose A, only number 2 stops it. 20% chose D, both will stop it, and then 4% chose C, neither will stop it.
Okay. In fact, when you think about it, with question number 1, what is the next thing I can help you with? There is no easy way to say yes or no. It keeps the conversation going. Question number 2, is there anything else I can do for you? There's a very simple yes-no answer. And if the answer is no, thank you, you just stop the conversation. So question 1 will keep it going. Question 2 will close it, which is option A. The thing to keep in mind is that a closed-ended question for which there is a very simple yes-no answer generally kills the discussion. It ends the discussion. An open-ended question to which there is no simple yes-no answer keeps the discussion going. Okay? So I will keep using open-ended questions as long as I want to keep the discussion going because I need to do some more needs analysis. Then I will use a closed-ended question, yes-no answer, create a killer silence, naturally leading to closing. So again, hopefully you learned something from this because this is very important and you start thinking about how you ask the question. Do I want to close or do I want to carry on? And based on that, I use open or closed-ended questions. So this was the last specific technique I wanted to share with you, again, out of the 36, the use of killer silence, closed and open-ended questions. There are a lot more different techniques, from storytelling to concept selling to the permission-based sales process. But, you know, we are running out of time, so we'll have to carry on to the closing techniques because the killer silence naturally leads to closing. I listed up a number of different techniques here, and if anybody is interested, you can ask questions about them. And I put in a link, and I encourage you to go to this link if you want to learn about number 10, which is the use of cultural coding and physiological coding. This link on YouTube will give you a 14-minute video talking about the differences between the male and female brain, because men and women think differently, and as salespeople we need to know this because depending on who we are talking to, the person will think differently, and we need to keep that in mind, and that's how we structure our sales discussion. It's a real eye-opener. I tell you, I learned a lot from it, and I hope you will enjoy it because it's a really funny video. So now, let's get into closing, and this is what we will close with. The first thing to know is that there are basically 2 types of closing. There is the one-step hard close, and there is a multi-step soft close. And if we are talking about SMEs, small, medium enterprises, or corporations, it's usually a multi-step closing process. A single-step process is a very simple one. If I have one offer, if there is a single need, a very simple thing, then I can just use it. But many times we actually have to do a soft close. We agree to go back and close later on. And there are different techniques for this. Now, there are 2 sources that I wanted to show you. There is, and I put in the link, that closing techniques. This website will give you, I believe, 60 or 70 different closing techniques, and if you click on any one of them, it will give you the technique and how it works and gives you examples. Or you can go, or you can go and check. This is the book, and I'm not gonna go to that, but I also listed up my favorite 70 closing techniques, for which we don't have time, so I wanted to talk about my top 10. how it works. And the top 10 are really the ones in blue. And I'm looking at the watch here, so we'll close very fast. There is the 1, 2, 3 technique. It's one of those things that I summarize the key advantages in threes. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, bang. It naturally leads to closing. It's a psychological thing. Don't ask me why. I can explain it in about 2 hours. There is the alternative. If we arrive at 2 or 3 options, I present them, and I create a killer silence. The killer silence will then force the person to say, okay, well, I like this one. And that's what I then carry forward. And I say, okay, if this is what you like, then these are the papers we need to sign. There is the bracketing technique. I look at the best but most expensive, or the cheapest but not so good approach, and I look at the happy medium. And you will need to think about how that applies to financial services. Then there's the calculator technique, using the power of numbers, where I quantify everything. If this is the loan, then I work out this would be the payment, this is why you can afford it, this is what it means to your business, etc., etc. So I use numbers and make them relevant. There is the conditional. Now this is the conditional. Now we are getting into multi-step closing. I don't get to closing the deal, but I leave it hanging there, and I say, okay, look, well, these are the things that I need to address, so let me come back to you 3 days from now and see what I can do for you. And then when I come back, I use the thermometer technique. A thermometer technique is called thermometer because I'm taking the temperature of the prospect or the client before I actually meet the customer. So I call ahead and I say, look, we left it here, and I just want to make sure that I come back to you and I talk about the things that are very important to you, or the most important to you. So this is what I took away, and these are the things I'm going to address. Is this it? So the customer will either say yes or no. If it's no, then I will ask what is the most important thing, and I will prepare for that. If it's yes, then I already set up the conversation on a positive tone. Again, remember, it's very important that we have a positive mindset. That's when we are willing to listen. So I set it up on a positive note so that he is ready, he's positively disposed towards closing, because he knows I'm coming back addressing his needs. Okay, then there is the doubtful. This is a beautiful technique. Not too many people use it. When I got to the point that, oh, I think this is what you want, and I say, well, but maybe actually, let me ask you, is this really what you want? I mean, this is what I put together, but is this really what you want? So imagine, this is a closed-ended question. Is this really what you want? There are 2 answers, yes or no. If it's yes, it will naturally lead to closure. Okay, if this is what you want, then, okay, these are the papers we sign. If this is not what you want, then I will ask questions to explore what is it that you really want so that I can give you the best offer. Okay, so that's a very, very important, very interesting technique. Not too many people use it, unfortunately. Another thing to keep in mind, if I can get a verbal agreement, the so-called handshake closing, then let's do that. Okay, let's get the verbal agreement, and then if we need to do the paperwork later, it will naturally follow. The point is, I need to set up a positive expected outcome moving forward. And then I follow up with the so-called easy approach. Hey, look, we agreed, the papers are done, so all we need to do is sign. And then there's also the shopping list approach. When we list everything up, these are the things we discussed, this is what all the things we checked, so we are done, right? Again, remember, it's a closed-ended question, and I'm forcing the closure. So these are some of the favorite techniques of Sandy. There are all sorts of other techniques that are listed up in different books. Many of these are unethical, and I suggest that you do not use them, because people will catch you and they will never talk to you again. So let me see what we have done. We have started with the importance of putting people at ease. That means that I know what I'm going to do, and I am therefore at ease, so they will be at ease. Their mind will be in positive territory, while normally they would be in negative territory. When they are in positive territory, I can ask questions to explore the needs. When I explore the needs, I can design the best offer. If they reject the offer, I can go back and do a reverse needs analysis to come back and not lose that opportunity to close. I can use paradoxes, looking into the future and giving them solutions to future needs today, and I can make sure I do not fall into the issue that many salespeople do, that I am not thinking about the future and I stop my effort once I close the deal. No, I keep up the effort because I would like to build a relationship with the customer. We talked about different ways of handling negative feedback part. One piece of that is the mental tai chi. We talked about how to position and use numbers, turn them into benefits relevant to you, how to use this technique to build 20-second sales pitches. They are called elevator speech, and I encourage you to practice this. We talked about the uses of killer silence and how we can create it by closed-ended questions, and how this can then be used to get to closing. Single-step or multiple-step closing techniques, and I listed off some of my favorite. This is where I stop because there are a whole lot more that we could talk about, as I said, but we just don't have time for it. We would need 2 or 3 days to go through all of this because sales is interactive, so we would need to be a little bit more interactive than what we can do here, but I hope you will be a little bit interactive and you will have some questions. So I stop here. This is what we've done today, and if you have any questions, this is your time now to ask.
Sandy, great. Thank you so much. I think there will be quite a lot of questions. And Sandy, maybe just one more time, as you mentioned again, sales is a really difficult topic to cover in 1 hour. And so what would be some of your suggestions of things that we could do afterwards to really continue the learning on this? As I mentioned, there is a prize to win Sandy's book that he had mentioned in the webinar. And so Sandy, maybe you can just talk a little bit more about that, and then I'd like to encourage people to post any questions or comments as well in the chat box as Sandy talks about this.
Okay. You see, the big challenge with these sales techniques and sales practices is that in a webinar where we are not going back and forth easily, and I have to ask survey questions and this and that, it's difficult to practice. Practice makes perfect. These are things that we need to practice. And I remember what we have done in the past, many, many times. We have these conferences, and senior people, CEOs and so on, come to these conferences, and we talk about customer relationship management, we talk about sales, etc. It's very good for them to know all of these things, but I think it might be more important for actual practitioners. So one idea I had would be whether or not CapPlus, or whatever we call it, sorry, could offer something where we say, okay, we put on a 2 or 3 day interactive workshop in person, and the suggested participants from the different companies would be, say, the head of training from HR, and either the head of sales or some salespeople who are actually hands-on practitioners, and they can pick up all these techniques, and we can leave them with the tools and materials, but we would for days practice how to use these tools and techniques, and they could take it back. So it would be like a train the trainer. So they can take all of that learning back, and instead of us going to the bank, they can do it locally and take it forward. That was about the one thing I could think of. So offer something not to the CEO level, but to the people who are actually doing this, and then have an interactive session somewhere in the world, and practice the use of tools, and the tools we can then leave with them that they can take with them. That was one idea that I had, and if anybody has a better idea, I would really love to hear that. And my book is there. Any questions?
That's excellent, excellent. Yes, we're starting to get some good questions in, and so the first question, some of the institutions that we're working with, already have some sales culture. They already have a sales system set up. But Sandy, what do you see as the weakest spot in the sales activity? The biggest areas that could be improved?
You see, today we talked about sales skills. And there are lots of things that we need to pay attention to. If you remember, the differentiating between problem and predicament tends to be a weak area. Then asking questions and being prepared for reverse needs analysis is another key area. But I tend to take a step back from this. Instead of looking at what could be the weak areas in the specific skills, when I visit companies, I think the biggest issue is actually how we organize the training of our people. It is one thing to train people in the different sales techniques, but it's another thing to make sure that they can actually use those sales techniques. And many times what I have found is that we train people to be the best, but then they go back and they don't have the tools or the processes that will help them use those best techniques. So in my experience, the weakest area in most companies is that they focus on training in isolation instead of training in context. Sales training must be put into context, and sales training then must be put into the context of sales processes and sales tools. And we will be efficient and effective only if we do it in context. That is really honestly what I have seen in most companies that as the weakest area. So it goes beyond training. Anything else?
It's very helpful. Thank you. So it looks like there's sometimes a disconnect between the clients that want to take on a larger loan and what they actually can handle in terms of credit risk. So how do you deal with that from a sales perspective with a client that wants a larger loan than they're really able to take on, either because of the size of the firm or the fact that they don't have, a strong business plan in place. So it seems to be a disconnect between the needs of an institution and the wants, the needs of the client and then the wants of the client.
Okay. The first point I would make is that that disconnect is just seems. In fact, there is no disconnect. The needs of the institution and the needs of the client in this case are very much the same. And I refer to this, but very fast as we were running through this webinar. And a customer says, I would want a bigger loan, and we cannot grant a bigger loan. If you remember, I said, I never apologize and never blame the credit department. I never say that we cannot give you a bigger loan because this is what you qualify for. The important thing is that we are actually keeping the client's interest in mind. You see, nobody wins if the client takes on a loan beyond his or his business's ability to pay. People think that, oh, well, the bank will lose because the customer cannot pay. Yeah, fine, but you know what? The bank will survive. But if that customer cannot pay the loan and the bank calls that loan and the customer or his business goes bankrupt, for the customer it's a much bigger deal. So the fact that I'm trying to save him from going bankrupt is actually very positive. So if somebody tells me that, I need a bigger loan, I will say, yes, I understand that's how you think, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make sure that you get a loan that you can handle because it is in your best interest. And I am actually providing this service. And you know what? If you go to somewhere else and they will give you a bigger loan, I think that would be a disservice, or it might be a disservice, because if you cannot afford to handle that bigger loan, then it will hurt your business. You can go bankrupt, and it's not good for you, not good for your family. That is what I'm trying to avoid. So I will give you this loan because I know that this much you can handle. Now, I will be here with you because my commitment to you is that I will work with you, and as your business grows and you can afford a bigger loan, I will give that to you. So I am doing the best for you today, and I will do the best for you in the future. That is my commitment to you, and that is why you should deal with me. So I'm always taking the perspective of the customer and what is value and what is in his or her interest, what would be their needs, as opposed to trying to defend the bank. Because in reality, that is true. We are saving the customer from himself or herself because we want to make sure that his business will not go bankrupt. So there's nothing wrong with that. I am not apologizing for it. I'm pitching it as a value-added extra.
Great.
Anything else?
Very,
Or have
very
I answered that?
helpful. We've had yes, I think so. We had a question in terms of how to practice some of this. So I think some of the participants are agreeing. You know, they've seen these before. They've learned some of the sales practices and the closing techniques. But you know, what are some real life ways that they can practice this in a real business case? You know, how are people able to build their skills on the job? So maybe you could talk a little bit more about that.
Okay. It starts with practicing in a non-threatening, non-live situation, which means practicing during a workshop or after the workshop, doing scripting, doing role-playing, looking at different opportunities, options, how you would handle this, how you would handle that, etc., etc. So that's the first thing. Remember the Muhammad Ali principle. Practice, practice, practice until you feel confident to step into the ring. Now, we step into the ring when we start talking to customers. The thing to keep in mind when we talk to the customers is not only trying to remember all these skills and all these techniques, but you know what? Nobody is perfect. Chances are you will not get it perfect the first time. Don't worry. As long as you learn, you are okay. So I walk into the sales conversation and I'm not perfect and I feel like, oh my God, I messed it up, I didn't get that sale, whatever. No, I'm not going to kill myself over it. Yes, I won't like it, but no, I'm not going to kill myself. I will actually go back and I will think about what I can do different and better next time. And then I will write it down. And I will develop this little list for myself. What are the things that I can do better, differently next time? And if I just look at it once a day, then within a month, I will actually get to the point that I don't need to look at the list. I will have improved to the point that I can do most things right. So, number one, practice non-live, non-threatening situation without the customer. Number two, when I'm with the customer, if I didn't do it perfect, I'm not going to get heartbroken. I will try to learn from it. As long as I learn, it is not a wasted sales session. Please think about it. Nobody is perfect. Don't blame yourself, okay? Don't blame yourself. Try to learn. When you blame yourself, your mind goes into a negative territory and you will not listen to yourself. So you need to be positive so that you can listen to yourself and learn from your mistakes.
It's very, very helpful. We're getting in quite a few questions, and I don't know that we're going to be able to answer all of them within this session. And so feel free to continue to send in questions. People had asked some questions about Sandy doing in-house training, if you have questions about that, or about some of the CapPlus exchange, you know, our capacity building services. Please feel free to send in those comments as well, and I can answer any questions after the webinar on that. But we will continue this discussion on LinkedIn as well, so we'll post at least one of the questions as we had done on LinkedIn and encourage you to respond and provide information and feedback on what your institution is doing as well. So we're going to take one final question, and I apologize that we don't have time for more. But one of our participants, they're having some challenges within their sales techniques. And so, you know, as an institution, they're hiring experienced salespeople, but they have gotten maybe some bad training, and there seems to be a disconnect between what maybe a financial institution expects of them and this sort of new sales culture, with a disconnect with some of the kind of negative sales tools and techniques that their sales staff have learned from other institutions. So how can they address that gap and sort of fix you know, what maybe some bad sales techniques have been?
Trying to fix something always starts with the understanding of what we have. Again, to go back to this webinar, if you remember in the beginning I said, ask questions. Don't try to sell, ask questions. If I apply that principle to this situation, I would say, instead of looking at it and I say, okay, good, these are the things we need to fix, the first thing I would want to make sure is that I really understand what is the background of these people, what are the good parts that we need to keep, what are some of maybe the bad practices that they need to unlearn. I would also look at my situation and my people, what are the good things that they have and what are the bad practices they need to unlearn, and then I would compare these two. And out of this comparison would come a matrix that says, okay, well, these are the kind of things that these new people are bringing into the organization that we need to then disseminate within the organization. On the other hand, these are some of the things that we will need to work with them on to make sure that this dissemination happens and that they pick up some of our best practices. So it's kind of like, it's called like a gap analysis. It's a very technical term, but it's looking for the missing pieces at both sides, both in terms of the new people coming in and in terms of our organization, putting the two together, seeing, first of all, if we put the two together, have we covered the full spectrum of best practices? It is possible that we still have not covered it. The new people have 30% best practices. Our people have 30% of best practices. They don't match. In the best case scenario, we still only have 60% best practices. There is 40% left. So we need to understand their best practices, our best practices, put the two together, see where the overlap is, see where we need to change something, and then also importantly look for the areas that we still have not covered by putting these two together, and then cover those. And this is, again, these are some of the things where you would need some, possibly some professional help, because it's always easier for somebody with a third-party perspective to see it. If anybody has specific questions, I think CapPlus, we'd be glad to look at it, help you. Ask specific questions, send it into LinkedIn or send it into Jessica very specifically, and then I can probably give you a more specific answer.
Perfect. That's great. And as I mentioned, we had about 2 or 3 more questions that we weren't able to answer today, but we are keeping track of those, and we'll try to get those answered via our LinkedIn page. If you haven't joined, it's under CapPlus Exchange on LinkedIn, and please connect with me there and connect with our group. Feel free to post any of your unanswered questions or comments there, and we'll try to answer 1 or 2 of these unanswered questions as well. So again, I'd like to thank all of our participants. Very excellent session discussion today, and again, thank you so much to Sandy for a very, very big topic, and I think you did a great job covering it. So thank you to Sandy.
Well, thank you guys. It was a pleasure having you here. And all the best. Good selling. See you.